Things YouTube, what's up? Okay, now my good friend True Empiricism has made a response to my end of a pissing contest video. Now I'm done. I'm essentially done arguing with this dude. I'm just seeing if he actually learned something from this little experience he have to show if he's a true empiricist.
Now you ask why I would believe if that God is eternal and not accept that the universe is eternal. Well, because our evidence, the best leading evidence, is suggesting that the universe was not eternal. That the universe had a beginning due to the red shift. All the planets are moving from away from one spot in the universe. And
Actually, what you just said, was initially wrong. Okay, first of all, the first half of my question was, if everything supposedly comes from a God, where would that God come from? We would have to explain the direct cause of that God if everything follows necessarily cause and effect. And also, that supposed observation is flawed because in quantum mechanics, things happen that are not caused, such as radioactive decay or when an atom in an excited energy level loses a photon. No cause is evident in the decay of a radioactive nucleus. And modern physics has figured this out. Okay? And here's the thing. You have to also explain like how does cause and effect actually work in terms of reality, because if you're talking about the energy because the universe is essentially composed of energy, which according to the first law of thermodynamics is neither created or destroyed. It changes form, it transfers from one end to another in order to do work. But otherwise it's an eternal stable state. All right, and this is an expression of the law of conservation of energy, which states this, and which is intrinsic within the laws of nature, which governs reality. Okay, and also there could have been a number of things that could have happened. Other causes, like the multiverse, could have existed before our universe existed. There could have been a big crunch that finished occurring before the Big Bang. Any number of different causes could be behind the universe actually existing. But you actually have to provide evidence for your deity rather than just, pausing it as a possible cause, because that's just a statement of opinion. It is not a statement of fact, as you can't demonstrate that with physical evidence or reasoned logic, because observable reality is off it.
Causation effect of time, space, matter, and energy discovered by Roger Penrose and Stephen Hawking, as I've mentioned before in my other videos, is suggesting that the universe had a beginning. This is the reason why we do not
Then explain where your God fits into it, because as I said before, there are multiple other factors that play within that, and also explain the whole cause and effect thing totally.
This. There's no evidence indicating that the universe was eternal. All of it is in
the energy which makes up the universe is
indicating the complete opposite of this, and affirming that
you essentially have to go against one of the natural laws of the universe, and I love how superstitious people like to do that.
This is not the case. You were talking about who created the design statement, which was given by Richard Dawkins. Well, this is a terrible statement to make because you don't need an explanation of an explanation for the explanation to be true.
Yeah, because here's what you're doing. You're essentially asking. You're skeptical about reality. You wonder exactly how it works. Like, I want to know the origin of life. I want to know the origin of essentially life and other things and everything. Science hasn't exactly given me a clear answer yet. Therefore, let me posit this supernatural thing, and you actually do that. You do that, and then you say, oh, I don't need an explanation of where that comes from. But if you're just making up a character, this is intellectually dishonest, because if you're just gonna make up a character that you can't account for with no evidence at all, why not just say you exist as just a natural link in the universe? Or you're part of a biological species on a pale blue dot, and save a freaking step, because The fact that you do make an extra assumption that you cannot back up is a violation of Occam's razor.
If the evidence is leading towards one conclusion, then you can't. This is the definition of an analogy. Language. How it's an analogy.
Your claim going back to DNA is language, and then what I say.
Well, what is the definition of an analogy? A comparison between two things or the purpose of an explanation. Yes, I guess we can't say that it is an analogy because it is a comparison between two things. The DNA code is exactly like a computer program in every single
Okay, and you're making an analogy again.
Way, shape, or form. It is the exact same blocking time inside of an anatomy, 4-character code, and information inside of computer program 1010. Both of them are doing the same thing. The computer.
You must study your computer manual a lot. Yeah, that empirical data really works. It tells you how you actually put those pieces together, how the circuits go. Empirical. There's a heuristic you've gone through. Said that the last 4 vids, and somehow you still don't get it. If
program is interacting with the different machines inside of the car factory, so that the cars can be built.
Oh yeah, I see you went back to that company. You took my advice. You learned something. Oh man.
The information inside of DNA is communicating with all the components inside of the cell, so that the cell can function. So yes.
As well as those chemical interactions which follows the laws of nature. You're learning after all to some degree.
I guess you can say it is an analogy because it is a comparison between two things.
Exactly, it is an analogy. You're expressing the same thing. You essentially agree with me in this point. Oh man, oh boy.
Now, if you're going to tell me that it's not information, you're going to continue saying that, I can't help it.
No, okay, you say it's a language. Okay, here's the thing. And I made this very clear. Biological thing follows the laws of genetics and biochemistry. That's naturally occurring, which follows the laws of nature. Okay. Now the reason you can understand it so well is because you make an analogy that you could actually get, like DNA being like a language. That is essentially a heuristic, okay? But that is an analogy, okay? You may have learned that, but that is directly an analogy. These are non-comparable things, and to a degree, you accept that. But when it comes to your trying to raise up this unobservable thing, it's not a good argument. Like I said.
If you refuse to acknowledge facts,
what you're saying in this case is not facts, okay? It's just a matter of like, it's like PEMDAS, parenthesis, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. It's a trick that you learned so you could understand the concept better. So this is not a fact. This is just a basic thing that you've learned.
I can't argue with someone who's going to deliberately refuse to acknowledge it.
Oh yeah, like how you refuse to acknowledge that you slandered me. I still haven't heard that apology about how you called me a liar. Okay, I accept that you don't agree with like the model I use, which is scientific naturalism. My essential worldview that I accept because it helped make marginalization possible. I'll accept, or my humanism, or whatever aspect I hold my worldview. But when you slander me, doesn't that go against the so-called morality that religious people get from a deity? Because you did mention the flood, okay? You did mention the flood in your comments, but you just assumed I meant your vids. And let's just go back to the end of this because I'm just tired with like all this.
The mutations or the mistakes, this is how the new genetic information is supposed to happen. But how can there be a mistake in the genome if there's no genome available? So this is the point. Evolution has absolutely nothing to do with the bringing in the biological material or the rearranging of these parts. It's a very now.
Okay, first of all, I was using evolution in the whole argument from design, the argument from design issue. Okay, I never say its focus is on the origin of life. Okay, I explain that those are different issues. I explain this to theists all the time who get evolution confused with abiogenesis. All right.
Finally, you admit that you don't know how the cell could be formed. Well, good.
What did you just say? I did what?
Finally, you admit that you don't know how the cell could be formed. Well, good.
And here's where I really, okay, ladies and gentlemen, here's where true empiricism, or should I say false empiricism, the very first nickname I gave true empiricism when I made my response to him. He essentially does not have empirical data in this case. Because I told this dude. No, actually, let me go on.
Glad you're being honest already. This is the point.
Okay, first of all, I was very clear. According to the John Norris experiments and the Miller experiments and the tons of origin of life studies that are done in laboratories and studying the amino acids and electrically charged isotopes, we understand that life can come from non-life. But I was very clear, we don't understand yet how that happened millions of years ago. But what we do know from that empirical research is that all life is essentially built on cells biologically, that it's all based on the same universal genetic code, and that it all requires life in order to actually exist. Okay? How it occurred that time, those millions of years ago, I was very clear that we are not sure yet. But what did you do? I told you at the very beginning, and this is what annoys me. This is what annoys me, because I said that this is exactly what you're doing. Now here and now continue.
Just admit this from the beginning, you would have admitted I was right. You do not know how this can happen. Good. You have to believe these things by faith. Good.
No.
Now just admit that when we do find a strategic amount of components working to get an overall function, like the computer that you are using, this always comes from the mind. So when you see it in the cell, it is the exact same thing.
Boom, 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 boom. There you go. You made a God of the Gaps hypothesis. I told you that's what you were doing. And you still do it. You still do it. How can you call yourself a true empiricist, man? I made this clear to you. That's exactly what you're doing. You're making an argument from ignorance. Science has not explained this yet. Therefore, let me just use a God of the Gaps hypothesis. I told you this from the very beginning, and you didn't listen. You didn't learn nothing. You learned nothing. We're done. No, we're done. We're done. I gave you. This is my 5th video to you. We're done. I'm not talking to you no more. I was very clear. I talked very slow so you could actually understand this, but you didn't. Okay? And this is not my problem. You bore me, okay, dude? I've explained this to you. You made an argument from ignorance. Science has not explained this yet. Therefore, let me posit a supernatural explanation, because I understand how things like a computer are designed, because I've read the frickin' manual, or I went back to the company. Therefore, let me posit something that does not fit the same criteria, because I'm using an analogy. We are done. We are so done. You are just one pseudo-intellectual that has just bored me to tears. We are done. I'm not explaining this to you again. This is my final analysis, and this is the end for it. Okay, I'm focusing on something more interesting. Forget this. We're done.